Dennis had never felt more alone in his life. His bank account was drained, his heart shattered, and his dignity in tatters, all thanks to an online scammer who had posed as the love of his life. The woman, who had promised him a future filled with happiness, had instead left him with nothing but heartache and an empty savings account. To make matters worse, his family and friends, instead of offering him comfort, had blamed him for his stupidity. "You should have known better, Dennis," they would say, their words like daggers. "How could you fall for something like that?" In those lonely days, the only soul who didn't judge him was his cat, Jonny. Jonny was a scrappy little ginger tabby, always by Dennis's side, as if sensing his pain. His purrs were the only sound in the house, a soothing hum that gave Dennis some comfort as he sat in his worn-out chair, staring blankly at the empty space around him. The days blurred together, each one as bleak as the last, and Dennis found himself drowning in self-pity. But one evening, tired of the suffocating walls of his small apartment, Dennis decided to take Jonny for a walk. The cool air outside felt strange against his skin, refreshing but foreign after so many days spent inside. Jonny trotted beside him, tail swishing with curiosity as they wandered through the quiet streets of the neighborhood. Dennis didn't have a destination in mind, he just needed to breathe. As they walked, Jonny suddenly darted off into a narrow, shadowed alleyway. "Jonny! Wait!" Dennis called, startled. His heart raced as he hurried after the cat, his footsteps echoing in the narrow passage. The alley was dark and littered with trash, but Jonny was undeterred, his small body weaving through obstacles with feline grace. When Dennis finally caught up, he found Jonny sitting still, staring into the darkness. His green eyes glowed, and he let out a soft, insistent meow. It wasn't a random noise. It was as if Jonny was trying to tell him something. Dennis frowned and knelt beside his cat. "What is it, boy?" he whispered, peering into the gloom. His eyes adjusted slowly, and then he saw it. Lying in a heap, barely moving, was a dog, its fur matted, its body trembling. The dog's eyes were half closed, and for a moment, Dennis didn't recognize him. But then, as he moved closer, his heart skipped a beat. "Billy!" he gasped. Billy was the dog that had been missing for weeks. Posters of him had been plastered all over the neighborhood, on telephone poles, shop windows, even on Dennis's apartment building. The reward for Billy's return was enormous, but more than that, the whole community had been searching for him. Dennis had seen the posters so many times that he could recall the exact wording, the hopeful pleas of the family who missed their dog so dearly. "Good boy, Jonny," Dennis whispered, tears welling in his eyes as he gently approached Billy. The dog whined softly but didn't resist as Dennis reached out to stroke his head. He was weak, hungry, but alive. With Jonny by his side, Dennis carefully lifted Billy and made his way out of the alley. His heart pounded, not just from the physical strain of carrying the dog, but from the overwhelming sense of hope that began to stir inside him. The next morning, Dennis contacted Billy's owners. When they arrived at his door, their faces a mixture of disbelief and joy, they broke down in tears as they were reunited with their beloved pet. The scene was emotional. Billy, though weak, wagged his tail as his family embraced him, thanking Dennis over and over again. "You don't know what this means to us," the woman said, her voice thick with emotion. "We've been searching everywhere. We thought we'd lost him forever." Dennis smiled weakly, overwhelmed by their gratitude. "It was Jonny who found him," he said, looking down at his cat, who sat by his feet, watching the reunion with calm eyes. "I just followed." The family insisted on rewarding Dennis, and to his shock, they offered him far more than he had imagined. The sum was enough to change his life. Enough to clear his debts and rebuild his savings. It was more than just money, it was a lifeline. For the first time in months, Dennis felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. As the days passed, he slowly began to rebuild his life. The depression that had gripped him loosened its hold, and the weight of his past mistakes began to lift. All because of Jonny. Every time Dennis looked at his cat, his heart swelled with gratitude. Jonny had led him to Billy, and Billy's family had given him the chance to start over. It was as if fate had woven their lives together in that dark alley, leading them all toward a new beginning. One evening, as Dennis sat on his couch with Jonny curled up in his lap, he stroked the cat's fur and whispered, "Thank you, Jonny. You saved me." Jonny simply purred as if to say that's what friends are for. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.